What happens when a country no longer needs to depend on its powerful neighbor? For decades, Canada's energy sector was tightly controlled by the United States. But the dynamics have begun to shift dramatically. Canada, long thought to be stuck in a dependent relationship with the U.S., is now rewriting the rules of the game. The United States assumed that Canada would be forced to accept rising tariffs, slow negotiations, and perhaps even concessions. Instead, Canada made a bold move that nobody saw coming, bypassing the U.S. entirely and cutting a direct path to China. This isn't just about oil. It's about control, leverage, and the delicate balance of power that's been shifting in unexpected ways. Canada's Trans Mountain pipeline expansion, which now pumps 890,000 barrels of crude oil per day to the Pacific, has fundamentally altered the landscape. No longer reliant on the U.S., Canada is playing its cards smartly, diversifying its buyers and positioning itself to take on a larger role in the global energy market. For years, Canada's energy exports flowed south to the U.S. One buyer, one market, and one risk. But with the Trans Mountain expansion, Canada has opened itself up to new possibilities. The pipeline expansion provides Canada direct access to markets in Asia, particularly China, Japan, and Korea. This is more than just opening new markets. It's about breaking free from the grip of U.S. pricing control and expanding economic independence. As the global energy market changes, Canada is proving it can make its own rules. The relationship with the U.S., once a source of immense leverage, is no longer the only option. The move to diversify was spurred on by the U.S. imposing a 10% tariff on Canadian oil, while Washington expected Canada to simply absorb the cost and continue business as usual. Canada made a game-changing decision. Why beg the U.S. to buy its oil when China is eager to secure long-term, stable energy deals? With China actively seeking out partnerships with oil exporters like Russia and Saudi Arabia, Canada saw an opportunity to join that list. The $24 billion Trans Mountain pipeline expansion tripled its capacity and opened the door for Canadian crude to reach Asian markets. Starting with China. In this new arrangement, Canada is no longer at the mercy of U.S. refineries, which for years depended on Canadian heavy crude. However, with tariffs now pushing up costs, U.S. refiners are beginning to feel the sting. Meanwhile, China is buying Canadian oil at a discount, ensuring that Beijing is not only securing a stable energy supply, but also avoiding the heavy premiums that come with U.S. pricing pressures. For China, this is an opportunity to lock in a reliable crude source without Washington's oversight, making Canadian oil a strategic asset. As the price of Canadian crude becomes less reliant on U.S. control, refineries in the U.S. are feeling the squeeze. Some are now pushing the White House to lift the tariffs, fearing economic losses and supply disruptions. On the flip side, China is not just buying oil from Canada, it's locking in long-term contracts that will shape the future of energy trade. This move aligns with China's broader strategy of reducing its dependence on Middle Eastern oil, diversifying its sources, and mitigating geopolitical risks. Canada's pivot to China is not a spontaneous reaction, it's the culmination of years of strategic planning. While the U.S. focused on maintaining its dominance in energy trade, China quietly expanded its energy infrastructure, positioning itself to take advantage of new sources like Canada's oil sands. Refineries in China have been upgraded to process heavier crude, and major pipelines, including the China-Russia ESPO pipeline, have been expanded to integrate new supply routes. Now, with Canada in the mix, China has a reliable source of heavy crude, bypassing the risks associated with relying on OPEC nations or navigating the volatile Middle East. For the first time in decades, Canada is no longer at the mercy of Washington's energy control. With the new pipeline expansion, Canada has options, real options. The US may still buy Canadian oil, but the days of controlling prices and dictating terms are over. Canada's newfound leverage gives it more bargaining power in trade negotiations, and with more revenues flowing in, the country is reinvesting in its energy infrastructure. The new energy projects and pipelines could make Canada a major player on the global stage, competing not only in oil, but also in LNG and other energy sources. The question on everyone's mind: could Canada completely stop exporting oil to the US? Well, it's unlikely for now. The fact that Canada now has other buyers, particularly in Asia, gives the country more leverage than ever before. If tensions rise between the US and Canada, the threat of a Canadian oil supply cut could force Washington to reconsider its trade strategies. The US may have lost the control it once had, and now it's Canada that holds the cards, of course. This shift comes with risks, particularly environmental concerns. With more oil being exported to China, there are worries about increased tanker traffic, higher emissions, and the potential for ecological damage. Environmentalists are raising alarms about the long-term sustainability of this new energy route, urging Canada to invest in safety measures and develop greener alternatives. For Canada, the next challenge will be to balance its energy ambitions with environmental responsibility. The U.S., meanwhile, is scrambling to find solutions to the challenge of a reduced supply of Canadian crude. One option is to find a new supplier, but alternatives like Venezuela, Saudi Arabia, and U.S. shale oil are either politically complicated or incompatible with the specific needs of U.S. refineries. Another option is to pressure Canada to fall back in line with U.S. energy policies, but Ottawa, now with alternative buyers, is in a stronger position than ever. For the first time, Canada is not waiting on Washington's decisions, it's making its own moves. This shift in energy dynamics has ripple effects across the global energy market. Japan, South Korea, and even India are all looking to take advantage of Canada's new role in the energy trade. More supply competition means lower costs for nations that depend on oil imports, and Canadian crude entering the Asian market offers India a chance to diversify its energy sources away from Middle Eastern price swings. The impact is also being felt by energy traders and logistics companies. As more crude moves across the Pacific, tanker operators and shipping companies stand to profit from the increased traffic. This isn't just a shift between Canada, the US, and China, it's changing the flow of energy across the entire Asia-Pacific region, creating new opportunities and altering old alliances. OPEC, too, is watching closely. China, a major consumer of OPEC oil, has long relied on the Middle East for energy, but with Canada now in the mix, OPEC nations may be forced to lower prices or offer longer-term deals to stay competitive. Russia, a key player in the energy market, is also keeping an eye on Canada's growing influence in China's energy strategy, as it could impact Russia's own relationship with Beijing ultimately. This shift isn't just about oil. It's a broader transformation in global energy flows and geopolitical influence. Canada's move to diversify its energy market is not just an economic opportunity. It's a political statement. By partnering with China, Canada is asserting its independence and redefining its role in the global energy market. China has found a perfect energy partner in Canada. Politically stable, economically reliable, and no longer tied to the volatile Middle East. Canada offers a much-needed alternative to the risks associated with OPEC and geopolitical instability. For Canada, The Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion and its energy deals with China are about securing the future. It's no longer dependent on the U.S. It's building for the long term, ensuring stability and establishing itself as a major global energy exporter. The energy landscape is changing. What does this mean for the future of global trade? Only time will tell. But one thing is clear: Canada is no longer a passive player in the energy game. It's setting its own terms, and the world is watching.